A message from Muad'Dib.
The whole idea about conditioning the kids is the idea of creating a new generation that thinks differently than the previous generation. Teaching the kids that they should think a certain way, or they should feel a certain way, or they should vote a certain way.
In the late 1800s, you have the emergence of psychology, the study of psychology, how people think and how people can specifically be manipulated. If you're familiar with the psychology of B.F. Skinner, what he would have you believe is that human beings are not creatures of introspection. They're not creatures of internal cognition. They have no soul, they have no thought processes, they have no free will. What they are animals to be trained. So you have Skinner's operant conditioning chamber, or the Skinner box, where he trains mice to perform for him based on a system of punishment and reward. Essentially what it does is it bypasses brain function and goes straight to an animal training method. You create a problem, offer a solution that drives them toward a pre-designed response. This is called the Hegelian dialectic.
The Hegelian dialectic is a formula and a strategy for creating a problem to then offer a solution that you have to the very problem that you've created to get the outcome that you desire, that you wouldn't have been able to get if you didn't create the problem in the first place.
The Hegelian social theory was adopted by Lenin, by Marx, and it was applied politically in the form of communism and socialism. The German psychologist Wilhelm Wundt, he is the first one to apply it to education.
For 85% of the American population, what is school supposed to do? Provide a path to employment and good citizenship.
I'm not going to go into a lot of great depth and detail in the Council of Foreign Relations, but you're looking at an organization essentially set up by Rockefeller and other central bankers, people who are responsible for the creation of the Federal Reserve to debate education policy in the United States. It used to be that education was run by the states. Today you have funding and financing taking place with the federal government, whereby if public schooling systems don't do what they want, they get their funding cut.
The Reese Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, and the Rockefeller Foundation, all these major foundations that can actually give American taxpayer subsidized grants to individuals who do things according to their criteria.
A tax credit is when you get to keep your money because of some reason. A subsidy is when I, the government, actually collect that money and then I turn around and pick a certain behavior that I want and then I subsidize that.
This was revealed in the book Lines of Credit, Ropes of Bondage, in which H.R. Gaither of the Ford Foundation revealed to Norman Dodd of the Reese Foundation that they were taking their directives from the White House. The American education system is a combination of Hegelian social theory and experimental psychology. They destroy things like competition between students, because if they tell you there's no competition, there's no reason to exceed. There's no reason to excel. There's no incentive for upward mobility. There's animal training for the workforce.
So you have to attack the families. You have to say parents aren't fit to be parents. So the state has to come in and control that. And then you have to control what the children are eating, what they're being fed, what they're being taught, what they're watching. Because you have to begin to set up the generation gaps.
And that's the whole idea behind working with the kids, and dealing with our kids, this concept of in loco parentis, that the school is the parents when the parents are not there.
Most people are too busy working the 9 to 5, and now that 9 to 5 is turning into 9 to 9 to be able to just survive, crippling the amount of time we have to transfer knowledge and information to our children or our young. So by making sure both parents are away from the children at work, they can guarantee that the social environment of school, preschool, daycare is going to be able to give the children the knowledge that they want to.
And what you have is the degradation of the individual, you have the promotion of the state, and you have the elimination of the middle class. Now, under this operant conditioning from Skinner, and under a system of reward and punishment, the only thing you learn is how not to get punished and how to achieve your reward. You're not going to come away from this system thinking, I'm going to stand up for something because it's right. You're going to do it because there's either reward or consequence involved. They're being trained to enter the workforce as a valueless cog in the state.
I'm a product of the public school system, and nobody ever taught me anything. I mean, I think we read the Declaration of Independence in the 5th grade, possibly, but I think the school systems are designed to keep people uninformed and to not understand the scope of their rights and where they come from. I think the powers that be would ultimately love everyone to believe that their rights come from the state.
It takes about 20 years for this sort of system of thought to instill itself in a generation, unchecked by traditional values. What you see is the same system employed by Stalin. And basically this is being done in America right now.
We're developing them to not question authority. We're developing them to be entitled, that the government will take care of them from cradle to grave. These efforts have been pretty successful.
No one questions their shackles if they're born into them.
We have whole generations of kids that are being raised to not think like free people, to think like slaves, to think like they don't have self-determination.
The state's goal is to get your children to turn against you in the name of the state, and that's where we are shifting now. We are shifting from an individualistic paradigm to groupthink.
They want to be led. They want to be sheep. They want to be part of the masses.
Critical reasoning, critical thought, individualism. I mean, those are huge concepts. I mean, they're universal concepts, but to be able to control the masses, you have to get rid of that. Because if you don't, you can't control those people.
It's the alleviation of personal responsibility because the experts are in control. Let them handle it.
I love USA! USA!
Political parties shouldn't exist. We ought to be voting for a candidate based upon principles, character, things like that. It keeps us from being able to fight over party lines. You look today, you have party platforms. These are things that we all have to agree on. And if not, you are not a part of this party. Well, look at Ron Paul right now. He's against taxation. Well, a lot of people in the GOP, we like that. But he's against the wars. Well, you must be one of those Democrats then.
The old saying, divide and conquer. So they try to just divide people into two different groups so that you can't unify. It's easier to manage a population when you have two primary belief systems. You're either A or you're B.
These people are conditioned to think a certain way and support a certain team. You know, they pick their winning team, whether it's Democrat or Republican, and then that's their guy. And it doesn't matter what that person votes for. As long as their guy wins, they put their pennant up, whether it's got a donkey or an elephant on it, and they wave it and they say, my guy won, things are going to be different.
It's so much easier to lie to the masses when the masses aren't involved. There's no better way to discourage the masses from getting involved than by creating convoluted, controlled dialogue based upon party platforms versus individual principle. They'll say out of one corner of their mouth that they want you to vote, they want you to participate, and then we notice statistically that there's less participation today than there ever has been. And that's exactly the way they want it. It's all theater, it's just political theater.
We go from rule based on constitutional law to rule based on a cult of personality well, he might be wrong, but he's my president, so I'm going to stand with him. That's a very dangerous mode of thinking. Do you support freedom and the American Constitution, or do you support this person? We've all seen where that led in Cambodia and Russia and Germany.
Bush and Cheney, everybody's got to obey the laws, including the president and vice president. Vote for Democrats. Obama, yeah.
Woo! I'm sure if you ask the average Obama supporter if they have good intentions or not, they're going to say, of course.
The path to hell is paved with good intentions.
You know, Obama's just as bad as the rest of them.
Why do you say that?
What's he done? He's one of the most war-hungry presidents we've ever seen. He has not fulfilled any of his policies that he promised at all.
The economy is still tanked. The taxes are still high.
I'll make our government open and transparent.
One of my priorities as president is opening up the White House to the American people.
That White House tours will be canceled till further notice.
I intend to close Guantanamo, and I will follow through on that.
We will bring an end to this war.
I will be held accountable.
These are bills that Congress ran up.
You will not see your taxes increase one single time.
Cut the deficit we inherited by half.
If I don't have this done in 3 years, then there's going to be a one-term proposition.
If you had a spouse who broke their promise 95% of the time, you'd get a divorce.
This is all fact, but people still support him.
Obama's name is in the Bible. I prayed and I believe that God picked the right president.
The Obamanoids. You're going to have 20 to 25% of the American public who will always support Obama no matter what he does because their own ego is on the line and they won't admit it.
Actually, those are not facts. What you just stated, those wasn't facts.
Everybody's happy to re-elect President Obama! Yeah!
What's your favorite thing about President Obama?
I could list a million different reasons.
It's truthful.
He's for public education, and he wants to restore it back to where it belongs.
Yes, everybody in Cleveland, low minority, got Obama phone. Keep Obama in president, you know. He gave us a phone.
Healthcare.
Healthcare, yeah.
Healthcare.
His public speaking skills are immaculate.
Yeah.
He's so smart, he was funny, he was captivating.
He understands where we come from as individuals.
He's definitely for the people.
Obama is my boy, man. He just knows what to do.
Love Obama. Let's go. Time to party. Let's go. I can give you 100 reasons.
Give me three. Three main reasons.
First of all, Obama is ensuring that
And the American people have been complacent over the last several decades. They've enjoyed unparalleled prosperity. And let's face it, the average American on the street, he's not interested in what's happening in Kuwait. He could care less about Libya or something else. And so if you tell him, well, listen, we're bombing for democracy, goodness, freedom, human rights, so he said, okay, it doesn't affect him. He doesn't have to go. Children don't have to go. There doesn't appear to be any risk to him. Now that's changing.
He's done everything Bush did, but more.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
Well, he had to continue what was started. You can't just say, okay, we're done.
Well, sure, he didn't end the wars, but there are wars now, so we're in support of it. And, oh, well, sure, he hasn't completely pulled out of Iraq, but at least he's reducing the number of troops there. Oh, so it's diet tyranny. It's tyranny light now.
There's a lot of other reasons why I'm going to vote for Obama, and hearing that stuff honestly doesn't change it.
For the greater good, most of the policies he's put in place, I agree with.
And he's challenging the status quo.
Well, he is the status quo.
Obama's going to take us forward.
the president and the first lady are kind of like the mom and the dad of the country. And when your dad says something, you listen.
I pledge
to be a servant to our president
and all mankind, because together we can, together we are, and together
people who have destroyed relationships with their families when they realize that their neocon uncle and their liberal cousin weren't just well-intentioned, that they were creating a justification for coercive government and ideology, that they were externalizing their own desires to control others, and that was reflected in those relationships.
It always is. I mean, no evil person or evil group of people are ever acknowledging that what they're doing is evil.
I want nonviolence.
Yes,
I want
so do I.
nonviolence. No, you don't. You're an Obama supporter.
Do you think he wants to go kill people with drone strikes?
Well, then
that's what he wants to do?
He orders it done, so I would assume.
All right,
so.
you're out of your mind.
People are aware of the truth. People choose not to accept the truth. There's a difference with this. People who are completely unaware of the truth those are becoming few.
It's self-deception. How can you be honest in a political debate or any other contest if you're deceiving yourself first?
The people who will, just do what the party wants and do what they're told and vote the way they're told, and they just keep voting for the machine. After a certain point, there's no more deniability. They can't say, oh, I didn't know, or I didn't understand.
Americans accept propaganda from their government that if it came from the Soviet Union, they would have laughed at. But it comes from the Pentagon, and they get down and worship. They go around looking for ways to defend the propaganda.
You can find people all over that will say that we should end the war, but they have a lot of trouble saying that when they meet a soldier.
It was actually my older brother who talked me out of joining. We had a lot of conversations about the bravado of the current U.S. military forces, the attitude. If you ever go into the military, it's definitely about psychological conditioning. It's the idea that when life and death is on the line, you cannot afford to believe anything but the fact that you are the biggest, baddest force on the face of the earth. Yea, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, because I'm the meanest motherfucker in the valley.
Reloading! War is like a big video game that I can watch on my TV. And isn't it cool to see all the U.S. flags all over the foreign country, showing how the occupation is proceeding? They want you to believe that patriotism means that you support everything the government wants. If you don't support it, you don't support the troops.
Another day, man. Another day.
So we condition them, and we convince them that their cause is just, and that their enemy is subhuman and not worthy of living. And the American people honestly play a role in that.
They come back, and the reception they receive is just astounding. These brave soldiers that come from a combat zone defending our freedoms, let's give them a round of applause. Who wouldn't buy into that, really?
Thank you for serving our country, and God bless you.
USAA auto insurance is often handed down from generation to generation.
I'm given tax breaks for being a veteran. I'm given discounts on my car insurance. I can go to the commissary, tax-free groceries. I get all the benefits I could ever want in the military. Why would I question that?
We have soldiers who are coming home, they look at all this, and they say, well, it seems like that was wrong, but how could I admit that that was wrong because I was a part of it?
You'll never know what we go through for your freedoms. But at no point does anyone question how are they defending our freedoms by invading a foreign country.
Well, you didn't serve, you don't know. Well, then what happens when a guy like Jesse Ventura, who not only served, but served in the SEALs, he comes out and he speaks and he says the same thing. Oh, he served, but. There is no but. He served. He knows. He's been there.
I was over in the Persian Gulf getting ready to liberate Kuwait, which is a kingdom, a dictatorship. And here I am liberating their oil assets from Iraq. I thought I was doing the right thing, too. And it's really hard to look back on that and say, hey, that military conflict that I was in, that my friends died in, that I got shot at in, I have nightmares about, I guess that really should have never happened.
And unfortunately, the media has worked tirelessly to ensure that this truth doesn't reach the American people.
In the past, we had the media to watch the government and keep them in line and ask the tough questions.
You all remember those clips in the old days, the black and white, and you'd see the news guys with the fedoras, yeah. They'd always go up and they'd be in people's face with the big flash bulbs, you know, Senator, this happened. You'd always hear, you know, politicians being held accountable and they're always being asked questions, and you don't see that anymore.
Leaders have found a way to cull the masses into their own ideal sets. And whether that's through bread and circus, such as the Roman Empire, or today through the mainstream media, they get to decide that, yes, you're going to be obsessed with American Idol for over a decade, and when that starts to wane, you know, we'll come up with Dancing with the Stars, and let's really be concerned about who wins the Super Bowl.
3 keys to power are banking, the media, and politics. If you own the banks, you can buy the media, you can buy the politicians. If you own the media, you can control what people see, what people think, you can largely shape the culture, you can create and shape people's fears, people's desires, the perceptions that they have of events.
In high definition.
Piers Morgan, live.
This is an ABC News. In 1975, there was a Senate investigation committee called the Church Hearings, which actually uncovered that the CIA was paying, under the table, mainstream media outlets $250 million a year to act as gatekeepers and propagandists. In today's terms, that's $1 billion a year. Of course, they say they don't do that anymore, but it's foolish to think that they don't. Why do you think the top story is the top story on all major networks?
Carl Cameron, you know, he'll tell you straight up, I can't answer anything unless it comes from my editors.
I can't unless I've got it approved from media relations. I can only talk in front of my own camera. I'm sorry.
Geraldo, will you talk about Building 7? Talk about Building 7. Help educate the public.
If you get video of Sarah Palin or get a soundbite from her, bring that back to us. You can hold the Ron Paul stuff.
We single out something that the media likes to talk about, such as the Trayvon Martin issue.
Could have been me.
But we don't talk about the much more serious events that are already well underway.
When was the last time you saw images of caskets coming out of airplanes? You never do. So that's never in the mind frame.
It's this happened, now Paris Hilton fucked somebody else. Let's spend 2 weeks on that.
You can't say that this isn't newsworthy. Obviously there is a blackout in effect.
The mainstream media, though, wants to stay in business. And if they suddenly discover that the people listening to them don't want that message, they're not interested in listening to it, they'll change their tune.
A lot of them are doing solid investigative journalism. Watergate, people were held accountable. People were fired. People were demoted. People were dealt with. There were prison sentences handed out. At least there was the illusion of some kind of accountability back then.
The Obama administration was caught red-handed supplying weapons to the Mexican cartel. Why? Because the CIA wants a certain cartel wiped out, protecting their own drug interests. What happened? Nothing.
The American citizenry now, like you've said, Fast and the Furious, they've done a great job. We just don't give a shit.
First of all, I think that they shouldn't give us too much information, because anything that you and I can watch on television, our enemies can watch. Really, it's better to not say too much.
Don't worry about it. You know, go back to sleep.
It's amazing. The mainstream media can actually do its job, and it doesn't matter. The American public is now in a state of apathy, almost a state of numbness. And that's what I see, is like this is an entire country of people who are turning against the truth.
But what are we developing the kids to do? We're developing them to not question authority. We're developing them to be entitled, that the government will take care of them from cradle to grave. You don't have parental rights anymore. Not just it takes a village to raise the child, but the village is now raising your child. When we condition the kids, what do we condition the kids to do? You know, we tell them always share, always work in teams.
See that table over there? We have 6 people sitting around. We always put 4 toys there. Not 6, but 4 toys. Because these kids have to learn how to share.
And that's a good lesson on some level. But what we don't teach the kids is that it's okay to keep the fruits of your labor. It's okay to work hard and earn and benefit from that. The thing about wealth is not a zero-sum game. There is wealth out there for everybody. All you have to do is be willing to work hard and earn it. The prevailing attitude in America today is almost that you should be ashamed to be successful. You should be ashamed to be rich. And that if you are rich, the assumption is that you got rich by taking from somebody else.
You will not find your justice in capitalism. You will not find your justice in the colonial government of the United States. You will find justice when the institutions of capitalism and colonialism are destroyed and they are replaced by sustainable ways of being that nurture and protect all life.
Is a lot of people have had some hard bumps in life that want things to be free, more entitlements.
What people are calling for in Occupy Wall Street is like, well, God damn it, government, you need to do something.
This is why we're losing all of our rights to too many people that are being dependent upon the system. We want to get all the free stuff. Where is my free stuff at? Nobody wants to hear this, do they? Getting my school loans paid for, getting my rent paid for, my food paid for. It needs to be what we can do for ourselves. I will put this damn mic down once you all turn our country into a socialist society and take away my right to speak. Choose to be complacent or ignorant, and that's fine. That's your right too. This is how you disperse a protest movement.
We have to ask a couple of basic questions. The first basic question, what should the role of government be? Should the role of government be there to run the entitlement system? Should we believe this story that entitlements are rights?
Yes, there's always an appetite for big government. There's always this temptation of getting something for free. And there's always the motivation, well, we'll help the poor people.
You want to give free food, free medical care, free education, free houses, and everything will be okay.
The lie at the core of collectivism is that it is all for the good of the collective. Once they get you to swallow that lie, any other lie they tell in service of that is not a lie. Orwell nailed it, freedom is slavery.
And a lot of the people out there in activism are embracing big government. They think that big government should be used for our benefit, that they can use it for our benefit. And the argument being, again, that you can't. That kind of control of central power. It's too much control for any one group.
Entitlement means the government's going to give you something for free. Where does the government get it? They've never produced a thing. The only thing the government can do is steal it from productive individuals. You don't have a right to your neighbor's wealth. You can't go in and steal from your neighbor, but you shouldn't have the right to send a politician or a congressman to go into your neighbor's house and take what they have because you want it.
They're saying that if you have more personal wealth than we think is necessary, then we're going to take some of that from you and we're going to give it to people that don't have any personal wealth.
I'm a warrior for the middle class. I mean, I do think at a certain point you've made enough money.
Those who grab the moral high ground and say that we're going to take care of the poor, what do? Welfareism and inflationism and socialism, they produce the poor.
It's not in the best interest of the people that run welfare programs to get people off welfare. Their funding is based on the number of clients that they have. Well, if they get a client off welfare, they get a client a job, then they lose that client, they lose that client's money. Because you've got to remember, it's a skimming game. For every dollar that it goes to a person on welfare, $10 is used to support that system. All these entitlement programs, they'll go on forever if you let them, because they will encourage people to become entitled. Well, I can work for minimum wage, or I can just quit my job and go on welfare if I have kids. Welfare is a better deal because I still get the money and I don't have to work.
War on poverty? Are you kidding me? 47 years ago. And now we have 47 million Americans on food stamps in this country. So for 47 years we fought this war, bankrupted ourselves, and now what?
We have cultivated this large underclass that has made itself dependent upon government, and government has encouraged that.
The ruling elite love to create a nanny state because then you'll go along with their plan. You're not going to bite the hand that feeds you.
And then the people who are getting the entitlement, well, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to vote for the people that continue the entitlement. We're saying to these people, well, you can't support yourself, so we'll just support you. But you got to support us when the time comes.
We have historically been a bottom-up society. We're not a top-down society. You can't make someone equal economically to someone else by giving them something. Are you going to hear Mr. Obama talk in those terms? No, Mr. Obama says everyone gets everything for nothing in perpetuity. Don't worry, we'll print money. Don't worry, we'll do whatever is required. You can all be permanently dependent upon us, and that's a good thing.
Honestly, it's almost like slavery. There's no personal freedom without economic freedom. If you don't have the means to earn money to support yourself, then you're going to be dependent on the government for food, for clothing, for shelter, for everything you need to stay alive.
Because after all, look up the definition of the dictionary of slavery. It's ultimately boiled down to one word: dependence. If you are dependent upon anything other than yourself to provide for yourself, you are a slave.
I won't have to worry about putting gas in my car. I won't have to worry about paying my mortgage. You know, if I help him, he's going to help me.
The idea of self-reliance is gone. The idea of independence and individual freedom, the respect for private property, all of these things is gone. No. We can confiscate wealth from people that create it and give it to those who have none, and that will fix things. We've transferred $16 trillion in wealth since 1965 to the so-called underclass. The only thing the underclass has done is get bigger.
They want that cradle-to-grave care from the government, and they want the government to use force and violence against people who are opposed to it.
Well, I obviously believe that my ideas are persuasive enough and beneficial enough to society that people should subscribe to them, but frankly, some people don't, and yes.
And at the end of the day, you'll use force against those people.
I believe that it's the role of the government to use force.
So you won't do it yourself, you'll hire someone else to do it, basically.
That's what a government is.
The reasons people do violence, if you look at the psychological underpinning, it's fear, insecurity, and the desire to survive. So we turn to violence when we're not secure in those things, when we're not secure in our own sense of selves and our own ability to thrive. That's why government propaganda is always fear-based.
It's difficult for me to think that if we lose our economic freedoms, we become dependent on the government for our basic needs. The next step is we lose our personal freedoms, because then starvation becomes a weapon.
Now, if the food stops, if the free services stop, and I think that could easily happen, because I think this whole giant federal edifice could go under, then you're going to have problems in many of these urban areas. In fact, you've already got them in the form of these flash mobs.
We see gang members who are committing welfare fraud, and they are killing middle-class people who work for a living and pay taxes. So these folks, they're not going to support this welfare state, but the people who do support the welfare state, well, they're going to go and kill their political opponents. We're already seeing this violence.
This has already begun. It's just not covered in the media. We don't talk about it.
We had an example, a beautiful example of minimal power in our government, and then we had maximum productivity and maximum wealth. But today we think too much of the wealth and believe that government provides this, rather than understanding that wealth and prosperity comes from freedom and productivity and not from the government.
When we had a freer market and sounder money and limited government, the middle class in this country was the largest middle class in the history of the world, and it was the wealthiest middle class in the world.
Madison said it very well. The purpose of government is to protect the unequal distribution of wealth. Mr. Obama wants to destroy that unequal distribution forcibly.
Personal responsibility, self-sufficiency, independence, all these things, you can't have that without recognized individualism. Individualism is now being demonized. you're selfish if you're an individual. You need to be thinking about the whole, the needs of the whole. Well, of course we do. We all do. And we discussed 250 plus years ago that the best way to go about this is by securing individual rights. But you can use the needs of the whole as justification for all manner of tyranny.
If you're looking for a leader, you're going to get a master, and you fucking deserve one.
The most ancient divide in politics remains to this day the fundamental divide. The legalists, as they were called, and they were chiefly the people in the governing class, just as they are today, and we would call them totalitarians, who believe that every aspect of our lives should be dictated and ruled and pushed around by government.
Instead of a political continuum being a line from left to right, it was really a circle. And that all political systems had to be judged by the amount of bodies that they stacked up. At the bottom of the circle, cheek by jowl, was communism, Nazism. Moving up the scale, you had socialism, fascism, all of the various collectivisms that subordinate the individual. And at the top was the constitutional republic of the United States. Free men, free markets, rule of law, ordered liberty.
What the Chinese used to call the Confucians, the libertarians, the live and let live brigade, the free marketeers, the small government men, the small tax. Us.
This is a country of individuals. What sets us apart from Western Europe around the time of the founding of this nation is that you already had socialism already in Europe. It just had different names. You know, whether you call it socialism, communism, monarchy, the end result is the same. A small oligarchy of people are in control. 90+% of the masses are out of control.
Our country is hijacked by a bunch of cretins and draconian legislatures who have grown complacent and comfortable as they receive from us the best health care in the world for free, six-figure salaries, the best business connections that corruption can buy.
Our government's supposed to be, well, first of all, transparent, but also should be doing our will. They're just our representatives. They don't respect the Constitution, nor do they respect the will of the people, nor do they respect, the principle of the people, the sovereigns, knowing what they're doing. So they presume that they're somehow, the appointed elite. They believe they were born with spurs on their feet, and the rest of us were born with saddles on our backs to be ridden. This is the attitude they have. It's really kind of modern royalty.
It's perfectly expressed in, we are the board. You will surrender to us. They presume up front that they have the right to direct you because of this larger idea that, oh, by the way, only serves their interest. That's the big lie of collectivism, because it isn't even about collective. It's about personal power of the people who direct the collective.
They hate the idea that ordinary smelly people should be allowed to have a say, when government should, in their view, be in the hands of the great and the good who deserve to exercise it. A new aristocracy of blackguards.
We talk about the conditioning of our kids and the conditioning of our military and our police, and we talk about the political conditioning that people are undergoing. What we're really talking about is a social movement, and what we're talking about is changing the way people think in terms of what it means to be free and what it means to be a person. The Declaration of Independence said we hold these truths to be self-evident. What the Founding Fathers were saying there was, this is obviously the way it is. There's no question that all men are created equal and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. What they're saying there is that, plain and simple, by the nature of being a human being, you simply are allowed to be free, to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That might be one of the reasons the Constitution is not taught in our public public schools, because if we raise up a new generation of individuals, they might realize that this whole system of government is unconstitutional. We shouldn't have it.
This document is the only thing that's going to save us, and if Barack Obama refuses to follow it, as he has demonstrated time and time again, nothing's going to change, folks.
If you get enough generations that come up under this system, and they just keep injecting more and more and more of the tired old world saga of collectivism into the minds of the youth, then this is where you end up.
Capitalism, people prosper. Socialism, people die. Millions.
No.
You know, lady, I was born in USSR. I lived there for 29 years.
Really?
Millions of people dead, and this is one of the mass murderers. Murdering people left and right. Really? You don't think so?
You're in exile.
Really?
You're one of the rich people they threw out of the country because you were robbing the people.
Everybody was equal. That's true. Everybody was equally miserable and poor.
If you live under a dictatorship, a communistic dictatorship, of course you're not gonna love it. You know, nobody loves it. They didn't let people leave.
Right, yeah.
They killed people. They literally shot and killed people who try to leave Poland. They used to give you cards, like stamps, like food stamps. And you used to go in the store and you had no choice of what to buy. And they always tell me, you know, you're spoiled. You get all these gifts for Christmas.
Right.
For Christmas, we got meat.
They would grow wheat, they'd grow corn, and then they would turn it all into the collective, and they expected to get something back. Well, the quotas were too high. They didn't get anything back. So you literally had people growing their own food, turning over to the government, and then starving to death.
You have rationing of food in any controlled economy. They reduced the people to utter dependency, and that's how the Soviet Union had their way with people for decades.
And people died. You know, thousands of people died.
Well, my dad, put his whole life on the line to come here because he saw it as a beacon of freedom. He saw it the complete opposite of what he was living under in Poland. That was his major goal, is to get away where I could have an opportunity to live my life in freedom and not be ruled by, you know, the elites.
I grew disaffected from communism, first because of the revelations of the killing fields in Southeast Asia. I had cheered when Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos fell. Then the revelations started coming out about massacres of innocents. This is evil. This is evil as the Nazis.
It's really hard for people to fathom those numbers when you're talking about Stalin 60 million, Mao, you're talking what, 40 million, you're talking about Hitler 6 million.
The individual matters not a thing. That's why they define peace as the silence, imprisonment, or death of their enemies. To believe anything else is to deny a reading of human history.
After the revolution, all these guys who helped the revolution wound up being victims of Stalin, and because they had torn down any protections of the individual, they were gone.
So if you're a hard right-winger, if you're a hard left-winger, if you've participated in the Hegelian dialectic, you've served your purpose. You're what they call the useful idiot.
They don't care about you once you have fulfilled your role for them.
The government doesn't quite frankly care if the terrorists attack, like embassies or servicemen, okay? That's part of the job. That's what they signed up for, is to take risks.
Soldiers are, for all intents and purposes, U.S. government property, and that's where the term GI comes from. GI stands for government issue.
And when Henry Kissinger said military men are like dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in our foreign policy, that kind of summed it up.
What difference at this point does it make?
I think of the story of the early days of World War I on Christmas Eve, when they took a pause and the Germans and the British started singing Christmas carols, and they finally got together and exchanged gifts and had a Christmas tree. And then in a day or two later, the hard might of the government comes in and says, you will not have peace. You must go back back to shooting and killing each other again.
Dwight Eisenhower, in his farewell address from the presidency, said that we should beware of the military-industrial complex. It is fully metastasized today into a cancer on our society that takes the best and brightest and the most nobly intent who would put their lives on the line to defend fellow Americans and puts them into these bullshit wars that have nothing to do with national defense.
And we've paid a terrible price for it. What, 1.4 trillion is a minimum? That doesn't even begin to address the massive consequences and the damage we've done to ourselves. It doesn't talk about the enormous losses we've inflicted on the people in the region, because remember, no one cares how many people we've killed or maimed or wounded.
We've lost close to 9,000 Americans in this period of time, 44,000 severe injuries. We have hundreds of thousands of veterans today begging and pleading for help.
They say Osama bin Laden killed, thousands of people on 9/11, and he has paid for that. He's dead. His organization is scattered to the four winds, but we're still in Afghanistan.
First, it was links to weapons of mass destruction, and then links to Al-Qaeda, and he helped fund the terrorists of 9/11. So that's justifying killing a million civilians to where parts of Iraq you can't even live in?
And while this is all going on, we're conditioning them that this is right. We're conditioning them this is what they have to do, that their cause is just.
As a result of this work, the world is more stable than it was 5 years ago.
Apparently it's morally okay to launch a war on the most absurd, transparent pretext, kill maybe 1 million people, displace 4 million people, and this is mainstream. That's a mainstream position.
People forget that when you hear these numbers, you can't possibly conceive that millions have been killed in the war in Iraq, for example, because we're such a compassionate military force. People forgetting that the statistics don't always account for the birth defects and miscarriages. Depleted uranium is essentially an industrial waste byproduct, and what better way to make money of something you don't have to worry about spending money on disposing of safely, right, than to turn it into a weapon. This is a very dense material, a very dense compound, great for anti-armor. Problem is, it leaves thousands of years worth of radioactivity behind, and if you look at children that are being born in Iraqi Kurdistan in particular, where they use a lot of depleted uranium, but they're using a lot everywhere anyway, you've got massive deformities, gigantism, and other things.
Higher rates of cancer, leukemia, and infant mortality were found here than in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
These babies are doomed to die.
These are untold thousands, if not millions, of lives that are being killed even before they're born. Those are the true costs of modern warfare. Depleted uranium is also a violation of the Geneva Convention and various other treaties that have been agreed upon by the United States and other Western powers with respect to chemical and biological weapons. Hell, we're in Iraq for WMDs, and we're using WMDs against these people. You don't hear about our weapons of mass destruction, do you?
You know who pays for that? You do. Your taxpayer dollars. You're the one who pays for that, so I hope you feel good about that.
Dear any American who thinks this Boston massacre is a big deal, but never protested a war, go fuck yourself. In Iraq, from the end of the first Gulf War to the start of the current occupation in 2003, sanctions on the country led to the deaths, conservatively estimated, of 500,000 Iraqi children. That's like 45 Boston massacres per day in Iraq for a decade. One every half hour. And they're not being blown up in explosions. No, these are the ones dying slowly, painfully, starving to death. Did you cry over that? Did you protest? Did you do anything to voice any opposition to what Madeleine Albright, then Secretary of State, called acceptable collateral damage?
You can't say that you are a Christian, that you believe in the sanctity of all life, and go bombing people into the Stone Age and taking their shit. That's immoral. You can't have it both ways and then say, oh, but I'm going to oppose abortion. You either are or you are not. I can respect someone a whole lot more like a Zbigniew Brzezinski or Henry Kissinger who just outright says it. Just outright says, we're going to take it because we can. And if you oppose that, try and stop us. At least we know where they stand. But with the common American, you want to have it both ways.
We are dropping bombs on crowded cities at night where old people and children are sleeping. And we're watching it on CNN. What are we doing done with all these wars. How are we safer?
This is a product of the emotionally stunted state that Americans have been lulled into. To be told when to cry, when to care, when to mourn, when to shut up and go along with the plan and keep paying your taxes. We are creating enemies with this foreign policy faster than we can kill them. And I can tell you that from my personal experience in Fallujah that backs that assertion up. They don't hate us because we're free. They hate us because we're myopic, patriotic idiots who allow ourselves to be so emotionally manipulated that when something like this happens, the result is more brown people on the other side of the planet die.
We made good progress, and we'll continue to work together to achieve freedom and peace.
People don't care because they choose not to. It's that simple. Either you do care or you don't fucking care. They look at those people as inferior people, for God's sakes.
Because that's them, it's not we, it's them. But them and we belong to the same people. That is the human freaking race here.
I have heard more times out of people, well, you know what? It doesn't affect me directly, so I don't fucking care. And they'll go, is that wrong?
If you consider yourself to be a moral person, you have to be opposed to this. If you do not care about morality, well, at least you're being honest. But I think we've got a nation, an entire nation of sheep doing everything they can to avoid that level of moral responsibility.
Now, Mr. McGovern, what is your problem? I'm sorry? He says, look, he says, don't you think it's worth 3 or 4 killed to secure the oil supplies that we need? I said, well, suppose one of those 4 killed this week was your son. He said, it wouldn't be my son. And it wouldn't be his son.
Our enemies are not 7,000 miles from home. They sit in boardrooms. They are the millionaires and billionaires who control this planet, and we've had enough of it.
The state has us thinking that it is us. Should we invade Iran? Or should we starve them? How dare they say we? It's them.
Human beings die. They don't need to die. Fuck, man, give them a chance. We're an incredibly gifted, creative race, just not given the opportunity because we've been suppressed through tyranny.
I will not be a part of that anymore. These medals don't mean anything to me, and they can have them back.
And I choose human life over war, militarism, and imperialism.
You are deluded, and your delusion is dangerous, and it is getting people killed. And your attitude, your tribalism, your personal identity, because you choose you want to be an American before you want to be a human being, it's disgusting.
Sorry to all of you. Fucking sorry.
Yeah, you're right, I didn't serve. You're the one serving. And it's your children who are going to look up to you and think that you're the greatest people in the whole world. Do you want a better life for your children, or do you want perpetual warfare? I really see this as sort of a moral decline of the United States of America, the idea that the ends justify the means. We need your oil, so we have every right to take it because we're bigger and stronger than you. That's what they do.
The problem is a moral problem. The answer can't be sought or gained by looking to the traditional moral authorities, because they ain't there, folks. And what does that mean? It's only us.
This is the stuff that keeps me up at night. This is the stuff that keeps me up at night.